Okay, jumping right back into our context here in Genesis. We took a week off, so let's just kind of drop back for a few verses and catch up with our context as we are dealing with Joseph and his brothers, and they're actually learning that Joseph is their brother, was what we read about this last week. So let's just catch up. Before this, chapter 45, back in chapter 44, toward the end of the chapter there, discusses how Judah was making a case that please don't keep Benjamin in jail because that would kill our father Jacob. And so that's as much as Joseph could stand. And he basically, I can't imagine how he lasted as long as he did and not reveal himself to his brothers the first time they came down. And because you can tell that he really does love them, but for some reason this lesson was being taught to his brothers as they were they came down into Egypt here to get grain. And of course the purpose of their coming, Jacob and his children, is because there's a famine, a great famine that's been now 2 years in all the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan and all surrounding areas. So let's just catch up here in the context, chapter 45, verse 1 through 2. Then Joseph could not restrain himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stood with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard it, or house of Pharaoh heard it. Verse 6, for these 2 years the famine has been in the land, so he's explaining now to his brothers, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh and the Lord of all his house and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. So here Joseph reveals himself, and actually the kindness of his heart tells them, really, it's not your purpose that was turning out here. It was God's plan. Now, that doesn't take away the sin from their actions, but still, God was working even in their evil of selling him into slavery. Okay, and verse 12. And behold, your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my mouth that speaks to you. So you shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt and of all that you have seen, and you shall hurry and bring my father down here. Then he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. Moreover, he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And after that, his brothers talked with him. Again, it's amazing to me that he could hold out this long with this charade or this pretend events that were going on throughout the last number of months. But finally, he's able to tell them who he is, and obviously his affection for them is great, even though they've wronged him. And but there's an example there of if somebody wrongs you. Yeah, the feeling is, I don't like that person, but Joseph, how could you get much more wrong than being sold into slavery? So he lets that go. He lets that go, and he shows them his affection, and he's endearing to them, and all is forgiven, basically, is how this looks like it's happening. Okay, now this is where we actually left off from last time, verse 16. That gives us a bit of background of where we were. Verse 16, now the report of it was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brothers have come. So it pleased Pharaoh and his servants well. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this. Now, this is great. I just love Pharaoh. He's obviously somebody that God arranged to be in power at this time, because he's a very wise person. He lets Joseph 2 years ago take charge of all his kingdom, and now he shows his gratitude for all that Joseph has done. And so he's saying, whatever you want for your family, you can have it. It's something that we really owe you and your God for what you have done, what you've saved us from. So he says, do this, load your animals and depart. Go to the land of Canaan. Bring your father and your households and come to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you will eat the fat of the land. And so you can see he's gracious. He's got this grateful attitude. We owe you so much. Take the best of what we've got. And he says here, now you are commanded, do this. So I like that, you're commanded. You don't have a choice. Well, it's a wonderful, gracious command. Do this, take carts out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and your wives. Bring your father and come. Also, do not be concerned about your goods, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours. I mean, can you be more gracious than that? So don't worry about grabbing everything when you go home and bringing everything down, because whatever you want, the best of the land of Egypt, you can have it. That is very gracious and shows much gratitude, I think, on Pharaoh's part. Okay, verse 21. Then the sons of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them carts according to the command of Pharaoh, and he gave them provisions for the journey. He gave to all of them, to each man, changes of garments. But to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments. A little bit of favoritism there, but think about this for a minute. Who suffered when Joseph was sold into slavery? I mean, who was it? Joseph, obviously. Jacob, certainly, that's his dad. Anybody else that was close to Joseph, you think? 11-year-old brother. What would he have felt like? I mean, that would have been a catastrophe for him. His brother of his youth and their time they would spend together and enjoy. And so, yeah. And so maybe it's fair that he was rewarded with so much and given so much because of what he's gone through at the loss of his brother Joseph, thinking that he had been killed by a wild beast. So yeah, I think that's fair enough. Okay. Verse 23, and he sent his father these things, 10 donkeys loaded with good things of Egypt, loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and food for his father for the journey. Not going to get hungry on the trip back, that's for sure. So he sent his brothers away, and they departed, and he said to them, see that you do not become troubled along the way. What does he mean by that? I mean, can they control if some robbers attack them? Well, they can't control that. What do you think he's talking about here? See that you don't become troubled along the way. I can think of maybe one thing. Were they all in agreement back so many years ago? Has it been how many years now? 7? No, 10 years, I think it is. No, more than that. Yeah. Anyway, whatever when they sold him into slavery, were they all in agreement this was a good idea? No, they were. Reuben, the firstborn, this is not a good plan at all, and his plan was to rescue Joseph out of the pit, remember, when they threw him in there. And even Judah came up with an alternative plan that spared him, so they weren't all in agreement. So I don't know, maybe that would have been the problem they would have had, is on the way home they'd be fighting and bickering. Told you we shouldn't have done it. You went ahead anyway. I don't know. I'm just guessing, of course, but he didn't want them to be troubled along the way, and maybe even troubled with their grief that they had done something terrible, or even, and you'll see later on too, they're still not clear of what they think Joseph might do to them later on in time, but Joseph has shown himself very clearly that he's been gracious. Sam, you have your hand? Oh, hand up over here. Yeah, I'd have to go back and add it up, but I think you're pretty close. Yeah, 22 years. I know that, what do I have? He is, well, Benjamin's 33-year-olds. We went through that. Okay, and he was 30 years old when he saw Pharaoh, and this is 2 years later, so he's 32? 9 years later. And he's... No, 9 years later. It was 30 and 7 years of plenty. That's right. 2 years of famine. That's right. The plenty comes first, doesn't it? Then the famine comes second. I'm getting my numbers mixed up there. So it was 30, then 37, now he's 39. Yeah, okay. Very good. Thank you for clearing that up. You mathematicians there. Hey, Sam.
The sea do not become troubled along the way. I mean, there could be so many different things. But the reason why they would become troubled. But I think it's just a general attitude request that he's giving them. He's, kind of trying to bolster them up. What has just happened is wonderful, right? Mm-hmm. They were in destitute. They didn't have the food, all that sort of stuff. It was a horrible time for all their family. And they have just been saved. And not only that, but now they're going to be wonderfully blessed. So at that point, they have this zing of like, it's party time almost, right? It's like, this is going to be so wonderful. We're going to go to Hawaii. I don't know. We're going to go to Disneyland, right? But now they have to make the trip. And he's like telling them, keep that attitude. Don't be troubled about the things that are going to come or into your mind or what you're wrestling with. Stay happy, keep positive, right? This is going to be awesome kind of thing. That's what I see in it, is like, keep smiling because this is going to be wonderful kind of a thing.
Okay. All right. Okay, verse 25. Then they went up out of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan to Jacob their father. And they told him, saying, Joseph is still alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. Now, I don't know if they've told him the whole story. We don't ever know if they tell him the whole story. But anyway, he gets the news. He's governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart stood still because he did not believe them. But when they told him all the words which Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. That gives you an idea that he was not happy or content for quite a long time. Unlike his son, apparently just took the difficulty that came. Joseph took that difficulty on him and went about doing the best he could in Potiphar's house or in the jail or as the ruler of Egypt. Just, again, a great example of being able to take what comes and trust in the Lord. Jacob doesn't show as much here, I think, of that kind of faith. But then, I don't know. I've never been a father who's lost a son. So I can't speak to that too well. So his spirit revived. Then Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. So he says that. He actually lives, what do we got here? Do I have that in my notes there? Oh, yeah. He lives another 17 years, so he's not about to die. But he's just saying, now I can die and go home and I'm happy. Yeah, Don.
Consider that Joseph was letting his father think that he died when he could have let him know like 9 years earlier, right?
I just thought about that last week.
Yeah.
Why didn't he send a messenger? He was governor of all Egypt. That comes up in my mind. Why didn't he send a message?
It was obviously part of God's will, though, right?
Yeah. All this is working out the way God wanted it to happen. But yeah, there's a number of questions like that I've got. Like, why did Joseph put his brothers through so much before he revealed himself? Why didn't he send a message, to his father so many years ago when he got out of prison and when he became ruler of Egypt? Don't know the answer to those. Okay, where are we here? Let's see. Okay, I will go and see him before I die, he says. Verse 29. Oh, actually, chapter 40. There's no verse 29 of chapter 45. Chapter 46. Now we're going through this pretty quickly. We'll stop and talk about some things as we go along that are pretty good interest. All this is basically pretty easy to understand. Jacob's journey to Egypt. Okay, that's chapter 46 primarily. Verse 1. So Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to God, the God of his father Isaac. So Beersheba, remember, here we've got Jacob living in a number of places possibly. He spent some time in Shechem. There, Hebron was basically the chief place that Abraham lived. And so he may have been living there. And then as he travels down, he stops at Beersheba. And this is what's happening here. He says, then God spoke to Israel in the visions of the night. Not directly this time, but in the visions of the night. And said, Jacob, which of course he's done before, right? Remember the dream of the angels coming down from heaven on the stairway. So God would speak to Jacob in visions sometimes. He said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here I am. So he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not fear to go down to Egypt, for I will make of you a great nation there. That might have been on Jacob's mind, likely because God says, don't worry about this. You're not going to be in Egypt forever. You know, you remember I promised you the land of Canaan, and so now he might be thinking, so why are we moving our whole everything down to Egypt? So he assures him, no, that's not going to be. You're not going to be there forever. For I will make of you a great nation. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again. And Joseph will put his hand on your eyes. What does that mean? Kind of a common thing they would do when someone died. They would put their hands on their eyes or close their eyes if their eyes were open. He would be there when you pass away. Okay, verse 5. Then Jacob arose from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried their father Jacob, their little ones and their wives, in the carts which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. So they took their livestock and their goods which they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to Egypt. Jacob and all his descendants with him, his sons and his sons' sons, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his descendants he brought with him to Egypt. Who did he leave behind? Okay, nobody. Everybody went. In fact, probably more than just his family, as we'll see in a bit here. So here's their trip down to Goshen. Don't know how long that took. And now we're going to review Jacob's children. We're going to go through this pretty quickly. As we run into these, some of these people later in the account of the division of the land of Canaan into the 12 tribes, we'll have more to say about that at another time. And of course, that doesn't happen until back down in Numbers, but the book of Numbers. So, chapter 46, verse 8 through 15. Now these were the names of the children of Israel, Jacob that is, and his sons, who went to Egypt. Reuben was Jacob's firstborn. So now we're going to first of all consider Leah's children here, okay? This description goes by wife here. So here's Leah's children. Reuben was Jacob's firstborn. The sons of Reuben were Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon were Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. The sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Meraiah. The sons of Judah were Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan. Remember that? What happened there? The story of Tamar, and they were Tamar's first husbands, and because they were evil, God killed them. Okay, the sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. The son of Issachar were Tola, Puvah, Job, and Shimron. Oh, Job, that's when Job lived. What? No? What's wrong with that conclusion? That's not Job that we read about in the book of Job? No. Where did Job and the book of Job come from? Moab. From the land of Uz, wasn't it? In Moab, yeah. So, no, different Job. Okay. The sons of Zebulun were Sered, Elon, and Jaeleel. These were the sons of Leah, who she bore to Jacob in Padanaram with his daughter Dinah. So Dinah's mentioned also. I don't believe that means that there weren't other daughters, but Dinah is called out because of the certain things that happened to her. My understanding, anyway, my opinion. All the persons, his sons, his daughters, were 33. Now, you got to keep track of this. I'm going to add this up because we're going to be adding up the rest of them. Okay, now we go over to the sons of Zilpah, which was Leah's handmaiden. The sons of Gad were Xiphon, Haggai, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arodi, and Areli. Pardon me? Oh, okay. I'm going to pronounce them the way I pronounce them. You guys pronounce them correctly in your own mind. That's right. I got to have the in my voice too, the Hebrew sounding. I know. The sons of Asher were Jimnah, Ishul, Usi, Bariah, and Sarah, their sister. I know how to speak Hebrew. I know 2 words that I remember. Shalom, Mashalom Ka. That's how much I remember. I had Okay. And the sons of Beriah, okay, were Heber and Machir. These were the sons of Zilpah, who Laban gave to Leah his daughter, and these she bore to Jacob. 16 persons. Okay, let's add this up. Verse 19, the sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, were Joseph and Benjamin. And to Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bore to him. The sons of Benjamin were Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Huppin, and Ard. These were the sons of Rachel, who were born to Jacob, 14 persons in all. Okay, add all this up. We got the last one here, who's Bilhah, and that's, of course, Rachel's handmaiden. The son of Dan was Hushin. The sons of Naphtali were Jeziel, Juni, Jezer, and Shelam. These were the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to Rachel his daughter, and she bore these to Jacob, 7 persons in all. All the persons who went with Jacob to Egypt, who came from his body, besides Jacob's sons, sons and wives, were 66 persons in all. And the sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2 persons. All the persons of the house of Jacob who went to Egypt were 70. Okay. I know, we went through that. We probably didn't need to read all that, but we did. I mean, that's something that doesn't impart a lot of information. No one's going to memorize those names. I don't think, anyway. So 70 is what we've got here. But over in the book of Acts, chapter 7, verse 14, we have Stephen making his defense before the Sanhedrin, and he gives a history of kind of some of the nation of Israel. And in verse 14, he says, then Joseph sent and called his father Jacob and all his relatives to him, 75 people. Uh-oh. What's the deal? Is it 70 or is it 75? This is kind of a challenge. It's been considered as kind of a possible contradiction in the scriptures, but I don't believe it is at all. And even if it were, it could be a translator error that could happen. But I think what's going on here, which is pretty easy to understand, my explanation is that this account that is made by Moses and records a certain particular people from Jacob's children, where the wives, if you've noticed, are left out. His sons' wives it says specifically, are left out of this number. So he doesn't count the wives here. Now, I think what happens over with Stephen in Acts chapter 7 is that he's talking about all his relatives, and he includes the wives in that account and leaves out some of the others. But whatever it is, so my understanding is that what Stephen does is he counts the 12 brothers and Dinah that are mentioned, the 52 of the brothers' children that are mentioned, and then 11 of the brothers' wives. That would be all the brothers' wives, which would be 75. So basically, it's just 2 different categories that are accounted here. Now, I don't know if that's for sure, but that's my best explanation, is that the numbers differ because the subject or the context is different. Joseph is counting a little bit different which people he is naming that come down. Moses' count leaves out the wives and adds a few people that I'm not explaining that very well, but and so this would exclude, for instance, himself. He would be excluding Joseph because he was already in Egypt, and his children, Ephraim and Manasseh, because in this context of verse 14, then Joseph sent and called his father Jacob and all his relatives. He wasn't counting himself or his children in that case. That's my explanation for that. And I'm not going to spend much more time on that. If you want to look at it deeper, I can. Yeah. So, Anyway, don't want to look into that too far. That's just what I'm thinking here. Now, here's another question: 70 or 75, whatever it is. There's that many people of that. Is that all the people that came down from the land of Canaan? Okay, well, yeah. Remember back, we've got a passage here in Genesis 14:14, back in the time of Abraham. It says here, now when Abraham heard this brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house and went in pursuit as far as Dan. So what we're counting here previously is 70 people. Doesn't count all the different people they might have, shepherds and servants and all these things. Back in Abraham's time, there were 318. How many are there now? Well, more or less. Don't know. Mm-hmm. How many there would have been? Hard to say. But what's counted here, of course, in verse 26 or 27 is those who were directly related to Jacob. So again, my opinion is that there's more people that came down, that came along with Jacob's family, and there would have been a bigger host that would have been coming down. And so later on, some few hundred years, we're going to say, when they come out of the land of Egypt, and they're, 1 million strong, I think. How many? I don't remember exactly what the number is. There's many others that are with him at this time would have made more prodigy than just the family of Jacob alone.
There were about 650,000 fighting men.
Men, yes. So probably could have been much larger. Could have been much larger. Yeah. Okay, but of those fighting men, you know, these two might have been included. It would have been servants who would also been part of that number. So we'll put that off until we get down to in Exodus there. But okay, so that gives us an idea of who may have been coming down in general or in all to the land of Egypt and going to be dwelling in the area of Goshen. So verse 28, then he sent Judah, that is Jacob, sent Judah before him to Joseph to point out before him the way to Goshen. And they came to the land of Goshen. So Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to Goshen to meet his father Israel. And he presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. And Israel said to Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen your face, because you are still alive. Okay, again, I'm ready to die, even though he doesn't die for another 17 years. He's happy now. He's content because he's seen his son, Joseph. Now, I've got a map up here of the lower areas of Egypt. Egypt, of course, extends much further down. But it's never known for certain where Goshen is. But most history and accounts, historians, will say it's in the mouth somewhere of the Nile River, because that was the most productive. In fact, the Egyptians had found ways to divert the water from the Nile and you know, were able to irrigate certain parts here, and this was supposed to be what they think is where Goshen was. And we'll look in a minute and see Ramses and Pithom, those two cities, which again, they haven't uncovered where they are. These are general ideas where they might be. So it's not like archaeology has found those cities as of this time, as far as I know anyway. Yeah, Mike.
Also, it is likely that at the time, of course, at this time, with Jacob and Joseph, that city would not have been named Ramses, because Ramses was not yet.
Yeah, we'll make a comment about that. Yeah. Well, Ramses, we don't know when that pharaoh actually ruled. Of course, if you watch the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston, who's the pharaoh they name in that particular movie?
Right.
Is Ramses. But most evidence shows that Ramses didn't reign until another 400 or 500 years. So
right.
It's just, like I said, trying to pick the pharaohs and point them down exactly to when they served, really difficult. And so, but maybe, because at the time, again, when we read about the city of Ramses and the children of Israel building that when they were slaves in Egypt, it's possible Ramses was the pharaoh, or it may be just the name they gave that city.
Most of
Oh, yeah, sure. Sure it is. I got it. You're right, exactly. They like, they based their decision on a couple of things. One of them was this, that Ramses appears in one of the cities that they built during the time. So, just don't know for sure. Okay. Just ignore the children screaming in the other room if you can hear them over there. Hopefully something hasn't caught fire.
I have heard the affliction of your children.
Okay, where do we leave off here? Okay, now let me die. Okay, continuing here. Okay, we got a hand over here. Florento, you back that up. Wait for the microphone, brother.
I couldn't help but to notice the narrative when the Bible said, when he saw his father, he embraced him and wept for a long time.
Yeah, yes.
And the father said, now that I have seen you alive, I am ready to die. Mm-hmm. The narrative tells us the deep love between a father and a son. Mm-hmm. That is, to me, really is inspiring.
Yes.
But it's also sad to say that nowadays we could hardly hear love like that between a father and a son anymore. I've seen them in a court filing lawsuits against each other,
You think about,
disrespecting the relationship.
yes. Why did John the Baptist come?
Turn the children's hearts back to the
Part of it was to turn the children's
father.
hearts back to the
father's hearts back to the
So you make a good point that fathers often don't have their heart centered on their children. There's so many other things you can care about and be involved in, work and entertainment or recreation or whatever. So fathers having their hearts, mothers more naturally do, but fathers having their hearts set to their children is something that we certainly need to obey or consider that was one of the reasons Jesus came. Yes?
Forgive me, Bill.
No.
But I just want to ask you, you're a pastor. If one of your congregants would come up to you and ask for an advice to mend a problem like that exists in their family, how would you help them mend that problem, to mend the problem? I think that's most difficult, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's a problem that fathers can have. Like I said, one of the things I would probably tell them is care about the things that are really important. And certainly God, our relationship with him is the most important. And then our family has got to be second. And then the church is real close up to the top of that list too. So that would just, real quickly, that would just say, learn to love the things that really matter. And certainly your family and your children matters a lot. Okay? Got a couple more minutes. We're actually going to go ahead over to Sam. Mike has requested just a few minutes of our time before class is over to practice the song that he would like us to sing during service. So a few more minutes will help him do that. Sam.
When Joseph, I see here when he says, "Now let me die," it's an expression too, right? He's expressing how important it is to his life, to be able to do this before he did die.
Yes.
And as like the priority of the father to the son in relationship to God is, Ecclesiastes says, all is vanity, right? Everything is meaningless. This moment right here was not meaningless to him. It was very important in his life. And I think that's just an amazing way that the Holy Spirit is showing us, pronouncing this as how wonderful a moment this is, right? Yes, he could have died and he could have gone to heaven and he could have waited to see him in heaven. But God blessed him and allowed him to see him before he died.
Yes.
And it was not vain. It was
Amen.
wonderful.
I agree to that. Very good. Well, Mike, This is, I don't want to get into the next little part here because it takes a little time to explain some of, one thing we want to take a little time on to go off on a little bit of a sidebar. So why don't you go ahead and take over and whatever you've got set up here to lead that song. Do you have the music up ahead of us, or are we going to just use our books, or what?